Hollywood has a famous line. It occurs in Casablanca when Humphrey Bogart says to an Axis double agent in real life, "For your sake, I let her pretend." He was speaking about Ingrid Bergman, who came from Axis cinema to infiltrate America. And lines like "For your sake, I let you pretend" are part of the social system of Hollywood that was working for Adolf Hitler. It's the sort of thing that's laced into all of their movies. And for Hitler's sake, for we let him pretend that he was dead, for example. For John Lennon's sake, we let him pretend that he was killed, is another example. For Gaza's sake, I let them pretend that the Muslims have not been implicated in the AIDS attack. I knew that eventually Jeff and treachery would catch up with me. And for my own sake, I let myself pretend that the people of Seattle could be called upon to show pity and have honor. For my own sake, as a lonely person whose life has been devastated by Zionism and Lenin. The proof of this is Gail Burston, a Israeli associate of Mick Jagger, who's stomping Gaza, and they throw their arms up. We love you, for him doing it. And this can be seen by the fact that Jeff and DeCoitery have a Palestinian statesperson wearing John Lennon's shirt because they're peddling martyrdom. John Lennon was the commercial of martyrdom that was clogged to the AIDS attack by Pina Sinfield and Robert Fripp, warlords. I know better than to think deep down that I would be able to continue with the Gaza um, protests for very long. My heart was in it. I did my best to document it. I'm writing some poems. But eventually I knew I would be forced to break from the violence of Her Majesty's government towards me personally, which was the a classic example of the new word in vogue, unprovoked. It was unprovoked. The sinister gyrations that put me in the gauge of their wavelength for abuse. But that's about as manufactured as a double cross as you could come upon. Latanya, whose crowd makes slaves of America, and I'm just one of the people who's being made a slave of by the Israeli Zionists, with the help of David Jeffen, Israeli Zionists, and Yoko Ono, who had my father butchered. She murdered him, and she had their entire movement rubber stamp his obituary. His entire movement is on the reverse side of Pitt's obituary. Now, I knew that Seattle would never come clean about any of this. They haven't even admitted that they kept a scholar out of school. They haven't even admitted it. At least the mayor of Pittsburgh admitted it. Pittsburgh has nothing to declare in its favor. I pointed out that there were papers, stacks and stacks of papers in this alleyway garage on Snively, which is hard to find, where they held me in absolute horror hostage. Hallucinogens, gassings, talking to me in tongue, beating me, and Pitt's teeth grinding avoidance, of course, is a mess. Their teeth grinding avoidance of investigating that shed is characteristic of their denial as an excuse for total citywide failure. And it's nothing new. So I have some notes I made yesterday that I may get into. I have a 5-page of notes I made on the ferry boat before the Gaza um, uh, protest rally, which may be the last one I attend because of the snickering of Sean Lennon and getting a Palestine to doff his Jeff and Label shirt. They used to put things like the joke's on you with the picture of Obama going outside the library. The NAACP would do that. My father was a veteran at Columbia with Eisenhower. I have a Jewish brother from a second marriage and grew up in a Holocaust survivor community. So I really don't need anybody to tell me what Zionism is. Zionism left me deaf, gave me a nerve agent, barred me from marriage, slandered my name, prevented me from becoming a musician or a recognized poet, and won't let anybody review my research into Pentagon Disney. The good cop, bad cop social squeeze that goes on between the psychopaths, Biden and Trump, is offering us, God help us, RFK Jr., who Israel has scampered up a tree with the Gaza Holocaust. He refuses to say a single word about it because, of course, he's the drug dharma dude, hanging out with Eric Clapton, slapping five at the Spike Lee barbershop with Toon and Mick Jagger. So don't expect much. Well, here's what you can expect from Robert Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr. Palestinians wearing Jeff and Label t-shirts because they have Lenin on them. That's what you can expect. So I don't expect any sympathy from these hardcore evil people. But when you look at the history of American editorialism, you have people like William Southfire, who evidently crossed paths with my grandfather, and Frederick Turner. I mean, back in the days of Hitler, Reagan, Harper's Magazine was run by a satirist, Louis Lapham. It showed how flimsy satirism was because he catered. It was an opiate. It was a Jeff and Lenin T-shirt for Palestine. He catered. It was an opiate magazine. It made you giddy because he catered to the powerlessness of the First Amendment by satirizing but never confronting Hitler, Reagan. And Joe Biden was just a dummy who was long hypnotized to the balance sheet of how much money can be made in war. He went from Scranton to Delaware, which means his specialty is protecting polluters from lawsuits. So the mystery of the foreign English in Highland Park, who was a friend of Billy Rod, has never been looked into. He was a friend of Edward Eisen, and they, of course, pronounced poison as poison, a mystery of the foreign English. It's never been looked into because of the teeth-grinding avoidance that leads to denial as an excuse for total citywide failure in the rabid animals. I mean, the cities of Pittsburgh and Seattle, where dreams come true, where Palestinians put on Zionist Jeffman t-shirts because they have Lenin. So John Lennon gets to suck the blood of Israel and Gaza. Ain't that neat? Foreign English is always on both sides, stabbing both backs, and licky chop to the back. So the story of the bird is the story of Mula Rula Kakadula. Now, how do we know that the Islamists, by their silence, have gone along with the AIDS attack? Well, of course, we know that the infidels look at porno. We know that. But more important, conspicuously, the 444 Days movement, the Iran-Contra Israel pipeline, the fundamentalist tripartites sent whoop-de-doo Michael Foucault, UW Dialectical's very own guru, to master plan the 440. He met with the Ayatollah for Frank Zappa. Yes, he did. They are the living proof that satire is the primary narrative of accomplice in Licky Choptopia. Now, Zionism is obviously a mercenary disgrace. And the people who are in charge of the Israeli army don't resemble what you would call Jews. They look more like Carl Survey, John Wayne type people. And they certainly don't represent my brother, even if he says they do. I'll snap my fingers at him, snap the hell out of it. Don't ever say you're my father's son if you go along with something like Gaza. But why did Gaza go along with the AIDS attack? Well, they were oppressed. I mean, they suffered too, probably. But Zionism is a mercenary disgrace. That's the basic point. And in Pittsburgh, by a little warthog haven of Zionist labor, where my mother lives, was Baruch Fishoff. Baruch Fishoff was a privy counselor, a senior counselor to high command, all through the way that Bush used me as a runt of the litter to induce teeth-grinding avoidance of the snuff film system that they even called Mancine, Neva Mancine, a Japanese, violent Japanese merchandising endeavor of child pornography that was kidnapping children from Pittsburgh public schools. Yes, lawsuit time, but Lee Marvin was doing it. Lee Marvin and Hillary Reagan were behind it. So Trump jumped down, pulled pee-pee, and said, how would you like it if we give you AIDS? And they gave me Parkinson's. They gave me gastro problems. They made me deaf. They used a nerve agent on me. And they have people with, with other forms of suffering following me around, saying, you better put on that Jeff and Lennon t-shirt and do what Mick Jagger says. Now, Nikki Sedler Nakatsu is running for president under a presumed name. If you want to know who the people were that were the hot rats assets of Neva Corporation and Royal England Nazis, you have to look into the hot rats assets where Pittsburgh were being run by a woman named Lynn Schaub and Toba Levison. And of course, the Caesar Anglo had access to all of the hot shots. There was Stylegate East. That's one that should be boycotted. So, they used a nerve agent to render a minor nerve agent from Shaviti, a brain impairing nerve agent, a reaction, contact reaction nerve agent, to make a minor experience what they call an extreme situation. And this shows you that there's nothing more mean-spirited and anti-American and outright Nazi German than Joe Biden's briefcase and his licky chops endeavor with his fanatically greedy son. Crooked in Ukraine is all about that Franken Hitler briefcase of his from Delaware. It's a Franken Hitler briefcase from Delaware. Well, Joe Biden is a Franken Hitler. They murdered my father. He was a goddamn naval veteran. How dare you call us anti-American? We're one of the oldest names in the United States, and that's why Netanyahu targeted me. It's a simple truth. And the people of Tacoma and Seattle and Pittsburgh have this Mick Jagger fantasy firing squad weaponizing AIDS. They've gone beyond weaponizing AIDS. They've glorified it.